it has to do, in my opinion, with the Rousseauian paradigm of this presumption that the default state of nature is effortless happiness. And then they just sift out any science information that doesn't fit. So the fact that dopamine is a struggle, that dopamine involves action, accomplishment, oh, they don't like that. So they just ignore it.
Well, absolutely. And I think as well, with dopamine, it isn't meant to surge all the time. And I think that was something that you had written in your article that I used and actually created a little handout for my clients.
Yeah.
So that they would realize, for example, that if they were setting a goal, sometimes a goal that was quite a way ahead, dopamine doesn't waste its time, if you like, on a goal that's very far away. So your article helped me to help my clients to understand their dopamine and to set themselves small, achievable goals. Little steps. For example, just to say, tidy out a drawer, or to write those letters or see to those emails that were jamming up their box. Little goals that they could do in just, say, half an hour or even 10 minutes, so that they would create that feeling of achievement. And then, because of dopamine helps us with motivation and movement, then the next time they think of the big goal, then their brain, that pathway that they've created, sort of spurts that little bit of dopamine, because it has already embedded a happy feeling.
Yes, exactly. So then one would ask, well, why wouldn't we want to clean our drawers and write our emails all the time if it feels good? So the bottom line is that you have to perceive yourself as reaching a reward. So if I say I'm going to clean my desk and that's going to help me get closer to a big goal, then that feels good. If I'm going to take a step toward the big goal, that feels good. But if I'm just going to imagine the big goal and not take any action whatsoever, then it doesn't feel good. So I like the way you said about dopamine wasting its time, because it's fascinating that the animal brain works this way, because animals don't really have a conscious, abstracted perception of time, and yet their brain is designed to make very careful use of their time and effort, so that because they'd starve to death if they wasted too much time on a hopeless cause. So the dopamine is released, like if you see food in the distance and you see that you're getting closer to the food, dopamine sparks, you feel good, and you keep going on that path. If you see that you're not getting closer to the goal, then you don't get the dopamine. So it's all about our control over how we define our goal.
Absolutely. And I think as well, following your approach for all these years, you used the analogy of a lion chasing a gazelle. And I've used that so many times to clients and to students that I teach now in the last 3 years, that the lion will chase that gazelle when it knows by instinct that there's a huge possibility it will catch it.
Yes.
However, if the gazelle starts to get away and the lion realizes that there is no point the gazelle is going to get away, it won't waste that energy or that inclination in chasing it anymore. So it stops.
The dopamine
and then prepares.
stops. Yeah.
The dopamine stops.
Exactly. When the lion is going after the gazelle and it thinks it can get it and it feels great, like I can get that, is the great feeling that we want all the time. I can do that.
Yes.
I would call it instinct. It's nonverbal, but what it is, it's connections built from past experience. So when lions are babies, they watch their mothers hunt, and then their mothers actually literally half kill something and put it in front of them, and they have to go for it. They don't get fed otherwise. And then when they go for it, the joy of relieving their hunger wires, paves the neural pathway that says, I can get this. And then over time, they get a real physiological sense of how fast they can go and how close and what they can get. So instinct suggests that it's inborn. And too many people these days, they think that when someone else has a skill, that they're born with it. And they don't realize how it's learned from so much repetition. And I've started calling it a library of experience, because each time you try something, you just make small connections. But after you do it a lot, you start building a big pathway. And in my new online video course, I hold up one of those drip toys where the drip goes down a path. And it's like I use that as the icon of our library of experience. Like my brain built that path from small drips.
I absolutely understand that as well, Loretta. And I think moving on through the years, reading and following your approach, repetition is something that we use a lot in our teaching, or in my teaching, is about repetition, and also the connections where sort of we have billions of those neurons. However, the connections between the neurons are created through experience, and as you have just said, through the cub watching the mother lion catching, or the lion catching the kill and letting them finish the kill, so to eat, so creating that connection. So I have loved learning as well through the years about how we learn by example.
Yes.
As well.
Great. So people love to hear success stories. So I'm wondering, I know you have privacy concerns, but if you could think of any success stories of clients of yours who have learned to build a new pathway and to take steps that feel good.
I do. And I think the one that I will use is a client that had a goal, that felt that would be the best thing for them. However, they just couldn't see how they would ever reach that goal. And so I used an analogy that helped them understand about repetition. And that was talking about a meadow. So if we looked out to a meadow, and there was a path across the meadow that was very well worn, but went to a horrible stinking bog. But there on the other side of the meadow was a lovely berry bush, and beautiful fields, and everything that they wanted was on that path. And so there wasn't a path. They couldn't see a way to that at all. And so in the story, I explained that if they just picked their way through, made a choice to go through, and just found a way to that berry bush, and made that choice, as we sort of know that our brain perceives change and choice sometimes as a malfunction, as life-threatening and not life-enhancing. But just pick your way through, decide to reach that berry bush, and then the next time you'll see that the path has been just trodden down a little bit along the way. You can see where that path goes. So again, you walk that path to the berry bush. And the more you walk it, the more confident you become, because you know where you're going, you feel safe. And that path becomes downtrodden. It becomes a real path, a lane, maybe then like a motorway. And what happens to the other path? It starts to grow over. And that analogy of explaining to them how repetition, and how you've said it before as well many times, that 43 times, I think, when we do something or think of something or decide something or visualize something 43 times, it creates a really sort of downtrodden pathway. And so that story for that person really, that client really helped, because they just, if you like, stepped out of their comfort zone and made a change.